Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I wanted to show you, this is one of the guys that helped open the Caleb and Brown office in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
After 4 years at Caleb and Brown, I'm proud to be leading our first US office out of Fort Lauderdale. My name is Andrew Garside. I'm one of the senior brokers here at Caleb and Brown. I've been in finance for 10 years, starting at a large investment bank as a trader on global equity markets. I traded in many different markets, including Asia, Australia, and the US. I moved over to a small boutique firm as an analyst for tech stocks, and I learnt more about tokenization and cryptocurrency and the direction it was headed in the future. In 2021, I made the move to Caleb and Brown to help manage my clients' portfolios with the same care and discipline as I did in traditional finance. After 4 years at Caleb and Brown, I'm proud to be leading our first US office out of Fort Lauderdale. I'm very excited to be able to meet our clients face to face. If you want to work with someone who understands both traditional markets and crypto, head to calebandbrown.com and get in touch.
There you go. They're opened up in Fort Lauderdale now, and I think they're talking about opening something like expanding further. If you want to have your own broker that you can call or email, if you want to have free institutional custody with Fireblocks, if you want to have the liquidity for your exit strategy, Caleb and Brown is one of my choices. They're my partner, and I've got a lot of my digital assets there. Go to xrpwealth589.com. It'll forward you right to my page on Caleb and Brown, and you click sign up today. Market's still flat. Because the market pullback, the Bitcoin operatives have been, of course, they get their entree onto CNBC to talk about how great Bitcoin is.
I think that Bitcoin will definitely go to $1 million at some point in the future. I just think this cycle, right, it's very unlikely that it's going to go to $1 million. And so what is the floor? I don't know, right? What I do know is right now at $112,000, $113,000, it's pretty oversold. And so I would expect that you have two things lining up. You've got kind of the overselling of Bitcoin, and you're headed into kind of September, October, which is usually a pretty good time, especially if it is the year after a halving. But also, if you look at like the VIX seasonality chart, usually right about now, you'll start to see the VIX really start to kind of move upwards, and we get a lot more volatility. And so I just think that it's August. People are on vacation. They're tired. They're, not paying attention, and things kind of just draw down. And starting in September, we should see Bitcoin kind of come back alive again.
Because of what, though?
Well, I think there is kind of a simple thing of just like people in front of their screens in September. They're not in front of their screen in August, and so people are buying and being more active. But also, I think that you've got a lot of speculation on a Fed interest rate cut. I think you've got a lot of the people who raised capital for these Bitcoin treasury companies that are going to start buying in kind of late August, early September. And then I also think that if people believe that the end of Q3 and the beginning of Q4 is a good time for Bitcoin, people start to act in a way that makes that.
Yeah, the market will definitely, in my opinion, lead the actual legislation, the anticipation. They'll start hearing things behind the scenes. Now, this is a guy, Rick Ryder from BlackRock, and he says they could cut interest rates by 50 basis points.
Studio is someone whose name has been floated as a candidate to replace Powell. He's BlackRock Global Fixed Income CIO and Global Allocation Team Head, Rick Ryder. Yeah, we'll talk about that later. But Rick, get right to it.
Okay.
What is Powell going to say if you had to guess?
So my guess is he's going to talk about balance. He's going to talk about they're well positioned. When you read the minutes, you talk about they're still concerned about you have some elevated inflation. I don't think it's that scary a number. You're still running inflation. So core PCE the last 3 months, you're on about 2.8. But I think they're going to talk about elevated inflation. They're a good place today to move. Listen, I think ultimately they're going to cut in September. I think they can cut further. I think they can cut faster. But I think he's going to talk about balance. The economy's in a good position, and that they're well placed to do it. I mean, personally, I think they can go faster, but...
Let's say, you mean 50 basis points, which is what Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, you'd call for that?
So I think they can go 50 basis points. I think the environment, you look at the labor data of the last, what was just revised. By the way, the Fed minutes that came out were before those labor numbers came out. The 3 months, you've had a moving average of hiring 34,000 jobs per month. If you take out healthcare, which is not interest rate sensitive, not cyclical, that's 67,000 of the 34,000, meaning you're really having negative job growth. You have the risk of stall speed for employment. So I think they could go 50. One thing I would say, I said that, people think about, where are we in terms of rate of change of interest rates? I just think the price is wrong. We look at markets where things priced. If you take where the funds rate is today, take 5-year inflation break-evens, it's 2.5%. It's actually under that. It's 242. If you get the funds rate down 100 basis points, you're still well above that. We just don't need to be sitting at 4 3/8 today. Could you go 50? By the way, people think it's panic. You just announced that it's the wrong price. We need to move it to a closer to the right price.
And what happens when they lower those interest rates? He says it right here, clearly signal a return of liquidity to risk assets. Now, Brian Armstrong from Coinbase says some interesting things in this little clip.
The rough idea I have in my head is we'll see $1 million Bitcoin by 2030. And there's high error bars around these things. But, just to give you a couple of data points, right? It's we're starting to see regulatory clarity emerge in the United States, which I think is a bellwether for the rest of the G20. You have the Genius Act passed now for stablecoins, but this market structure bill is being debated in the Senate. Fingers crossed something could happen by the end of this year. That would be a huge milestone. The United States government now has a strategic Bitcoin reserve. So that is, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, that would have been kind of vision board. Someone would have said, you're crazy. The United States government's not going to officially hold Bitcoin. But if they do that, which there's now an executive order to do, I think a bunch of other countries are going to do that. We've seen a lot of interest from sovereigns, right? I think Coinbase actually provides crypto services to about 140 government entities that, believe it or not, at both federal, state, local, and internationally. So governments are now getting more and more engaged in this. And you can imagine the big pools of capital around the world. And there's a lot of, so I don't see the regulatory thing going away. That was one of the big risks is the government going to shut this down? I think that risk has been severely diminished. And then, is there going to be some flaw found in the Bitcoin protocol? I think that's been severely combed over at this point. We need to make sure we upgrade it to a post-quantum cryptography. But
are elliptic curves already post-quantum or no?
They are theoretically, I believe. I don't. No one's
really good to nail that down.
It's a little untested, but I believe there is a path where the Bitcoin core team and Ethereum and Solana, everyone, they're looking at proposals now to upgrade to even
definitely post-quantum.
Yes. So I think the list of kind of risks is getting diminished, and at the same time, the amount of demand, the amount of institutional money just sitting on the sidelines waiting for this next bill to land, these are the big institutions I talk to. They're holding 1% of the portfolio in Bitcoin, and I'm like, what would it be to 5 to 10? And they say regulatory clarity. That's it. So I think we'll continue to see huge inflows of capital. The ETFs.
I believe this market's going to move once they start hearing whispers that this bill's going to pass. And then this is the Kraken founder talking about the money that's coming.
So
and they always say Bitcoin, but that's a ruse.
We're really early. We just had at the symposium, we kicked it off and we started talking about global finance and what's going to happen in the ecosystem. We had a very US look at it, and then we had a very zero-sum look at it, which is, the value of Bitcoin is going to be more synonymous with gold. And our take has been more that Bitcoin is a protocol, it's a network, and you have another set of protocols like ETH, et cetera. And that the way in which we think about it today is very linear, and it's hard to think about what is exponential and super linear. And so the way I think about it is that we're just in the really, really early innings of what's going to be trillions of dollars coming into the ecosystem, building against it, and then the value continuing to grow.
Can you explain more?
There you have it. Check this out. Gemini is going to launch their XRP MasterCard on the 25th of August. They even put out a video of their advertisement. That could be huge, folks. Real huge, just like this. The adults have arrived. XRP price reflection is inevitable in my opinion, but I'm not a financial advisor, as you know. A new record for XRP futures. Let me pull this up. They hit an all-time high in open interest with 6,000 contracts August 18th, right as their anniversary approaches. It's a clear sign of growing conviction in the market. Check it out, XRP futures. And then we have, this is interesting because, look, I've become an expert at spotting all the different tactics tried to FUD XRP and all this. This is just another in the long line. About a week or two ago, we started seeing all these chain link, probably bots, trying to come in and tell everybody why it's Chainlink and not XRP and all. And again, I don't have anything against Chainlink. I think Chainlink's going to do well. I think it's going to be one of the digital assets that's a part of the infrastructure of everything. But that doesn't mean we won't point out the BS that comes along with all this. This is from Dom at EZA. Pretty clear where the attention is. 1.2 million views versus 120K in the first 48 hours since airing. No amount of fake FUD, paid influencers, and bots can beat an organic community focused on a common goal, unity, not division. And he also goes on to say, I have nothing against Chainlink as a company, but their online community is very, very clearly pushing people away, not drawing them in. And he's pointing to when he and his brother were on CNBC, 1.2 million views, and then Sergey Nazarov from Chainlink's on 123K views. And I reiterated the point. He makes a good point about the XRP community. There's no comparison. And there's not. Here's another way you can spot this narrative. This guy's been FUDding XRP for a decade. But here he's trying to he's trying to make a comment that's simply not true, that XRP people have just decided to jump ship on XRP and they're going to Chainlink. Complete lie.
What about things like Chainlink? It's also got a big bid all of a sudden, and it's become also like a darling of Wall Street. Kind of see the XRP army moving towards Chainlink. Is it on your radar, or is that not one that you're
not really? I mean, I'm not really super in deep on the whole Oracle space and what they're doing. Maybe they moved past Oracle and they're doing something else. I don't really know.
Man, these people are so full of it. And I did say they should just join the circus where they belong. Okay, we're going to go into DAIXRP.com, the Patreon. If you'd rather join through YouTube, click the join button below any of these videos. If you'd rather join through X, hit subscribe. I do the full video plus the extended video with no commercials in there. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family. Away we go.